Welcome to Event Marketers Live, brought to you by Goldcast. My name is Kelly Chang, and I'm the head of growth here at Goldcast, and I'm going to be your host for today. So at Event Marketers Live, we're bringing you the humans and stories behind the scenes of our favorite B2B brands, events and experiences. But before I introduce our special guest for today, I do want to cover a couple of housekeeping items. If you're here in the chat, say hi. I'd love to hear where you're joining in from. I'm joining in live from Boston. I see we have Montreal, we have Minnesota, we've got India. Let me know where you're from. So housekeeping items. The first that I want to announce is we are taking Event Marketers Live on the show, this show on the road next month. So there's a link at the very bottom of the stage. It's going to be triggered right now. We're calling it Event Marketers Live in Real Life, EML IRL. And so in this special episode, we're going to be conversing live from sunny San Jose, California. If you're in San Jose, let us know in the chat. We'd love to see you in person. But this is a hybrid execution. So if you are not in California, please join us virtually as well. We'd love to have you in the conversation. We're going to be talking all things about post-event strategy with demand generation experts from two of my favorite brands, Box and Databricks. And so another announcement is that the session is being recorded and is going to be available for on demand. Later this afternoon, we'll notify you over email once it's ready. But speaking of recorded, we do have a very sweet giveaway that we have for today. We have this webinar is being recorded t-shirt to give away to any engaged attendees. So if you're an event marketer or you host events, you know that this is a very popular question. It's always asked at least once. So we made it easy for you all to answer this. So to win one of these t-shirts, all you have to do is ask a question under the Q&A tab, attend today's session for over 30 minutes, and we'll ship one over to you. All right. So today I am super, super excited to introduce Monica Benke, the Chief Growth Officer at Iron Horse. Monica, can you please join me on stage?
Takes a second. You get the picture and the live.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. So audience here, we want this to be super community centric. So let us know what's on your mind. We have the chat on the right-hand side. You can, send a text message. You can send emojis. You can send out a GIF. We also have a Q&A tab for all of your questions for Monica, which we'll get to towards the end of today's session. But before we kind of get into today's meat, I'm going to kick off with a poll today. I want to know, how many years of B2B marketing experience do you have? Monica is joining us today with a wealth of knowledge and has seen sort of seismic transformations of the B2B marketing landscape. So I'm just curious, how many people have sort of seen the many different shifts of B2B marketing? But while you're answering that question, Monica, can you tell us a little bit about Iron Horse and your role there?
Sure. Yeah. So Iron Horse, we are a growth marketing agency. And, it's funny because I fuss sometimes with even calling us a marketing agency, because I feel very strongly that there is a intersection between sales and marketing. So it's really more about the growth part than it is about the marketing part of it. We are fluent in both strategy and execution. So we have a team of people that help clients figure out their go-to-market strategy, figure out their content strategy, kind of figure out what it is they're supposed to be doing. And then we have a team of experts that help execute and activate across all of the pieces that you would imagine, content creative, account-based marketing programs, performance media, analytics, nurture and relationship marketing. And we partner with all of our fabulous vendor partners as we do that for our clients.
Awesome. So if you have any questions about any of the things that Monica just talked about, really anything that goes across alignment, across the go-to-market teams, feel free to ask her. She is an expert in this space. So let's take a look at this poll and see what you all said. All right, so we have, most of you guys are sitting between 3 to 5 years and 6 to 8 years. Okay, that's definitely, we got some people who have a lot of experience here, and we do have a few people that are early in sort of the B2B world. So I think today's conversation is definitely going to be interesting hearing about, where Monica has seen the B2B marketing landscape, where it's been and, where it's going and everything in between. So Monica, first, your career portfolio is extremely impressive. Before we met, I looked up your LinkedIn, and you've held executive positions at places like Serious Decisions, Forrester, Cisco, and IBM. Can you tell us a little bit about your career path? Like, how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I feel old. I started my career in Canada. I'm Canadian. And I started my career at IBM in sales. And I was in sales for about 8 years. And it was actually a really good education. I was really fortunate. IBM at the time really invested in people and educating them on, how to do sales. And at the time, there wasn't the kind of self-service journeys that there is today. So as a salesperson, you really had to help a client go through the journey, and they taught you very well, how to do that. So how to have empathy for clients, how to really question them and get their needs out of them, how to, find those needs and match a solution to them. And it's really interesting, even today, that foundation of selling and the way that IBM taught it is still consistent today, because people, regardless of how they go through it, they do go through a buyer's journey. Eventually in IBM, I went into something that looks a lot more like marketing. So I did competitive marketing, field marketing, brand marketing, product marketing, et cetera, and so forth. Eventually, I left the company because I wanted to jump into kind of the internet, the first internet boom, and became an entrepreneur and had my own company for a number of years, and that was really fun. Went to Cisco and eventually to AMD. What's I think interesting about all of that journey is I intentionally led every function of marketing. So I led analyst relations, I led field marketing, I led brand marketing, I led event marketing, I led product marketing. So when I became a marketing executive, I really had a good span of all the different functions of marketing and how they have to work together. Which led me to being an analyst. And some people may know Serious Decisions. Serious Decisions was a lot about best practices. Yep. And I led most of the services, a lot of the marketing executive services at Serious Decisions. And when acquired by Forrester, I led all the B2B services, sales, marketing, and product for Forrester and for Serious Decisions. And I think that, having worked in all the different functions of marketing gave me that unique perspective of how they all fit together. So it's kind of fun. And when people ask me early in their career and they want to be in marketing, which part of marketing should I do? It's like, all of it. Do all of it.
So is that, because you've had, all this, kind of like a very, like a, what do they call it? Like a T-shaped marketer, where you've kind of had, different experiences across different functions of marketing. And I think, your experience in sales probably really helped you get empathy for, how to work with the sales team and how to align with them. Is that how, you kind of went into this growth space? Because I'm also the head of growth at Goldcast. And one thing I love about growth is it's kind of like a little bit of everything. And, you're in the intersection to really make an impact.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think that I keep coming back to that intersection of sales and marketing, because I love to be on the revenue side. So I've never, kind of gravitated to being like in a pure creative kind of role. I like it, but I always like sticking close to revenue. And it's been interesting to see the journey of being in sales, where you are 100%, you carry a bag, you are responsible for revenue, and marketing growing from a almost supportive revenue function to what I personally consider a revenue function. Marketing is on the critical path to revenue. So I keep graduating to that, or gravitating to kind of that intersection of how do these things work together. And I think that go-to-market journey, of all of the things that have to happen in order to go from kind of cold to close is shifting. And the roles of the functions between sales and marketing over, my career span has shifted quite a bit. And it's always kind of there's been a series of very interesting moments along the way.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Let's talk a little bit about those interesting moments because, I remember when I first started, getting into B2B marketing, I started on the agency side. And it was very heavy on like trade publications, billboards.
Yeah.
It was very static, and digital was really just kind of coming on the up and up. And there have been a lot of buzzwords like ABM. I absolutely remember, when Serious Decisions came out with like the waterfall framework. Can you tell us, from your perspective, how has marketing changed since you began your career in the B2B marketing space?
It's
a big question.
It's a big question. It's changed a lot. When I started marketing, gosh, we were in brochure land.
Yeah.
I actually remember in IBM, I remember going to a field office and opening a closet, and I'm like, what is this? It's all the brochures that we printed that we don't use anymore. And it was just like stacks and stacks and stacks of stuff. It was amazing. So yeah, a lot of things have changed, and thankfully most of them are good. I think there's been a really interesting virtuous cycle between kind of technology and behavior and activity. So, the first, just focusing on the really, really big ones, the first big one is when the internet came. Before that, we were brochures and my car keys, and that's how information was dispersed. When the internet came, it started out, if people remember that, as your brochures online, so you could just see them. And people tried to monetize eyeballs, and that didn't last very long. But people understood that the power of it and the power of communication. And so that technology created a behavioral change, which then created a change in terms of the way that sales and marketing, I'll say both of them, started to have activity. Probably hit marketing first, right? Mm-hmm. So that is a cycle that happened. The next big one that I think was even more significant from a marketing perspective was when, largely when marketing automation platforms came to the world. And I think it's because at that point, even on the internet, it was still marketing as a communication vehicle, marketing as a storyteller, if you're doing really well, a brand. But when marketing automation came to the world and you could start to track, even lightly compared to what you can do today, marketing started to come into that revenue stream. And so the ability to associate marketing activity with buyer or customer behavior, and associate that with revenue was universally huge. And it changed how the function operates within a corporation. So that was a big change. And then there's been lots and lots of kind of builds on top of that. Account-based marketing, huge change, because you could start to shed light on what was dark before. Do you remember the days, you might remember them, Kelly, in, early marketing automation days, it was all about drip marketing, right? Drip nurture, right? It's like, I'm going to send you an email, and then next week I'm going to send you another email, having the tools to allow people to have control of their own journey was a big piece of that. And then intent and those kinds of tools shed light on that journey. And so there's this virtuous cycle of technology comes, behavior changes, activity changes, technology comes, behavior, and that has cycled through a number of times, where we are now in I think the next big kind of pivot or inflection point. And this is why, to go back to our earlier conversation, the inflection point is really how marketing and sales are operating together, because you mentioned the waterfall. If you remember the waterfall, the first one was 2008. Can you imagine that? 2008, 2012, 2017, it's like I was involved with a lot of them. And we talked about the handoff, right? Marketing does stuff and we hand it off to sales. And that's been the mentality of the go-to-market motion for a very long time. And that is breaking down now. It's been breaking down for quite a while. And I think marketing has kind of almost gotten a little ahead of sales. And now sales is catching up, going, I guess you're right. People do want to have digital journeys, and it is marketing that is helping them through that buyer's journey, and sales is involved, but it's not a handoff. That idea of a handoff
It's very intertwined because it's like you need to work hand in hand, and just because sales is it's maybe somebody is super high intent and they're entering the sales cycle, the marketing side can't disappear, or else you kind of lose the momentum. So you really have to join forces. And you talked a lot about alignment and making sure that teams are speaking the same language. Any future kind of predictions? You mentioned, that being sort of the next inflection, people really needing to focus on alignment. What are some predictions that you have that teams have to really focus on, to get that alignment, or else they might fall behind?
Yeah, it's I think that it's funny. I think I've seen clients have different responses to this. Interestingly, I sometimes see marketing organizations that are almost like afraid of it. Like they're the ones that they don't know how to change their processes. They don't know how to change what they're doing, and they're kind of resisting it. In some cases, it's sales needs to be educated and needs to come up in their thought process. And a lot of it, to be honest, I think it goes back to three things, two to three things. They're all intertwined. One is having the technology to do it. I actually think having the technology to do is probably one of the easier things to do. It takes some money, it takes some time, it takes some expertise, but it's knowable and doable. I also think the technology hasn't really been mature enough to do it at scale until the last 2 or 3 years. So if somebody goes, "Oh, I haven't been doing that yet," you're still it's still fairly new-ish. It's not bleeding edge, but it's new-ish. I think that people are going to get there fairly easily. I think the harder piece of this is the combination of cultural change and measurement change. Because so many marketers are still in the trap of how many MQLs did I hand over to sales, right? Handover, bad. MQL, important, but not the only or maybe the most important measurement that you have to have. So there's a process and a measurement. What are the measurements that you should be looking at? How do they change? How do they get aligned between sales and marketing? And then how do you culturally get people on board, especially if marketing is starting to do stuff that sales either has traditionally done, thinks they should do, maybe has become uncomfortable historically with marketing doing it, and now they have to get comfortable with that. All of those are tough cultural changes. So change management from the executive team and the teams all around is a big thing. And I think those two things, the measurement process and change management, like that bundle of things, is harder than.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. I mean, so that's a huge implication to how you report on attribution, how your business does quarterly business reviews, how maybe even your sales teams get commissioned off of deals and stuff like that based off of credit. What any tips you have? I think it's before it was sales versus marketing. Now it's sales and marketing. Yeah. So how I think there's an interesting question on from Madeline. I'm going to share it to the screen. How should marketers broach the topic of marketing commissions with the pivot of away from handoff of sales in organizations that are still old-fashioned? This is really hard because you're trying to make the change within the company, but it's definitely a difficult cultural shift.
Yeah, and you know what? I get this question fairly frequently, and there's the answer is it's not easy, right? And it's not instant. And you have to be progress based on it. So the first thing, if we're kind of getting away from the idea of the handoff to sales, first thing you have to do is have empathy, right? It's like, go talk to the salespeople, understand the sales motion, understand what's happening. And generally there is something that marketing can do with sales to be particularly helpful to them, to either give them insights that they don't have or to create productivity that they need. I'll give you an example. We have a client, and they, gosh, like there's very little marketing, to be honest. So I asked them, I go, well, where do you get opportunities from? Like, because sales is driving their own opportunities for the most part. They go, oh, we hustle. We hustle. I'll go, well, what does hustle mean? Well, we go to events and we network, and then we call all the people up, and we get to know everybody. We look up all the information about them. And I'm like, gee, wouldn't it be great, if marketing could help you kind of uncover some of those insights of who these people are, and there's tools to create dossiers, and there's tools to see who is going to those events, and maybe tools to go get in front of them again. And that idea of hustle is how do we help you with the hustle so you don't have to hustle as hard? Because salespeople need to do what they do well, which is build relationships and close business. That's what they should do: build relationships and close business. And marketing should help them with that hustle piece of it. The other thing I'll tell you, we were on a call the other day, and we were implementing intent monitoring tool for this client. And all we had done at this point was put the pixel on their website. That's it. And we had a meeting, we had everybody there, and we go, let's take a look at who's coming to your website. And we literally pulled up a demo because we were hosting it, pulled up the demo and said, look, here are the people that are coming to your website, and you should see their eyes. Because the lights went on. This is something they could never see before. Now that's a fairly immature company in a fairly small thing. But for that company at that time, those salespeople, they did not know who was coming to there, because they were one of those people that, what do? We hustle, we get references, we talk to our friends. Our friends said, call this person. We now just automated a piece of the hustle just by turning on the lights. Now we earned the right. Now we earned the right to have the conversation to say, okay, if we can get those people, know a little more about them and see what they're doing, will you follow up on them? Yeah, we will. We will, because they're part of it. They're part of the journey, and we're giving them a piece of what they need along the way. And I could give you lots of different examples, but I think you get the kind of where I'm going.
And so I have a question for you, because this is something that I'm currently challenged with, and I think a lot of maybe more advanced organizations are also challenged with this, is the overload of data, and not being able to make sense of all of it. What advice do you have for those teams? How do you prioritize different data points to make sure that if marketing teams are spending all this money on insights and data collection and automation, that it's not being unused by the other end of it, the sales team?
Yeah. That's a great question, by the way. There's a maturity piece of it. There's like a lot of different dimensions to that. I was an analyst for a long time, so every single answer is, it depends. But let me give you some dimensions and some insights that I think are important. First of all, when you start with any kind of data, start as clean as you possibly can. And that's just kind of goes without saying. Everybody kind of knows that. At the beginning, when you're starting to collect marketing data, I think that there's a very high noise to signal ratio. So if you think about kind of intent and data that matters as signals, just generically, at the beginning, you're going to get a lot of noise. It's important. And I always tell our clients when they start to see that, like, don't get overexcited about this. There's a lot of compression, a lot of shrinking in to get to that signal that we have to do. So we have to keep scrubbing the data to get to that piece. That's point one. Point two is understand the goal or the outcome of what you're doing and what data you need in order to make the next decision. Okay, so that was a long, complicated sentence. Let me break it down. There's I don't know if you seem to know some about Serious Decisions. There was a framework, Ross Graber created it probably 8 years ago, six years ago maybe, called the metric spectrum. I love the metric spectrum. I ascribe to it. For people that don't know, metric spectrum basically says there's 4 categories of metrics. There's activity metrics, things you can count, clicks, opens, stuff like that. Outcome metrics, and those are the results of the things that you can count. So they may be that a whole bunch of things happened, I can score somebody up and they can move in and be promoted to my next level of marketing qualified opportunity, something like that. There are the business metrics, the impacts, revenue, growth, profit, whatever we want to talk. And there's the readiness metrics. Do I have the right account names? Do my account names match my ICP? Do I have the right skills? Do I have the right, am I giving the right tools to sales to help them? So part of getting to a better signal to noise ratio is to understand what you're trying to do. So if my goal is, I feel like my emails are not getting opened well, right? What am I looking for? What's the data that I'm looking for? How am I going to test that? Maybe it's the subject line. Maybe my list is crappy. And I can pinpoint by asking a question and looking for a specific piece of data, and so on. So it's like, okay, what is the outcome that I'm looking for? Well, I really want to get people to get to a trial or a demo, because I know if I can get them to a trial or a demo, they convert really well. So all the stuff that comes before that is really important to the people that are taking those activities. But the person who's asking the question, and maybe now you're talking about a CMO, a CSO, or an executive committee that's saying, hey, I want to know how many people are getting demos, because I have a high confidence that my ratio of demo to close is high.
Mm-hmm.
Don't show them the rest of the sausage. Those are really important for the people that are doing it. Just show them the piece, because that's the piece that they want to convert to. And over a period of time, expand as a marketeer the set of things they're looking for to answer the questions that they are either asking or they should be asking. They just don't know that they should be asking. And that's how you get out of the how many MQLs or how many, marketing source leads. Marketing does so much more than source leads, because of this more intertwined journey. Give them that answer, but then add another thing. You're not asking about this, but we find that, if people do demos, if they're not asking that, if people take a demo, their conversion rate's really high. So I'm going to show you that. If they're not interested, find the person that is interested that can influence the person, right? Because somebody can influence the person you want to tell. And so if you can't go straight to them, go around and go through and influence. Take it a piece at a time to give people that. Worst thing you can do is just dump all the data in front of everybody. You're better to go fewer pieces and add incrementally than show everything and edit and take away. So it's almost like, all the room edits and all of those kind of your closet thing. What is the first thing they say? Take everything out and just put back the pieces you need. Do the same thing for your metrics. Take everything out. Put back the pieces you need.
It's almost like an experimentation, like a multivariate test, trying to see which one, works, which metrics, make a lot of sense in terms of like telling your story. And then, once you have that win, continue to build on that. So then you can continue to build credibility. So like you're not overloading things and overwhelming people with just too much information.
You said a really great word, is telling your story. I love the idea of data stories. Like, how do you tell your story through the data? How do you look at the data to find the story, right? Then don't show all the data, just show the pieces that you need, find the story, and then use the data to support the story. And I think that sometimes we separate like data and numbers and stories much more than they should be. And they should be, thought of together.
Great. So, you started your career on the sales side for years at IBM, have that experience in your back pocket. Do you have any thoughts or tips on how marketing teams and marketing managers can optimize working with sales from like a marketing point of view, especially when you're talking about, making sure that the handoff isn't just like a one-off, but more of a conversation between the two teams and they're continuously working together. Any tips for this? I think a lot of marketers may not sort of be able to sit in the sales seat or have the experience of sitting in the sales seat. So any thoughts you have on that?
Yeah, even if you don't sit in the sales seat and you have no desire, I have no desire to go back to sales.
It's a hard job. I have a lot of respect to the salespeople out there.
Totally respect salespeople. You still can, talk to the salespeople. I mean, honestly, it's sometimes as simple as, if you geographically can, go and have lunch with the salesperson. Even if you're not going to go to a sales call, just, understand their motivations. Understand what works for them, what how they work at all stages of the journey, what they find helps, and let them know what it is that you think helps at that stage of the journey, and have this kind of really honest exchange of ideas. And that's the first thing that you can do to create alignment. Is you have to create relationship and empathy on both sides of that conversation. Learn the language that sales is talking about. So, understand what they call the pipeline stages, in your company. So it's not just, your funnel stages in marketing. What happens to it when it goes over to pipeline? Understand, what their pain points are in terms of their job on a day-to-day basis, just because it builds relationship and empathy. And then they will start to allow you to say, hey, it's when you do these things, it makes my life really hard as well. And they care a little bit. So that's one thing. It's really, really basic, but I think it's really, really important.
Yeah. I want to, go back to something you talked about earlier, where you said, the sales team hustles, and like marketing can help with that hustle. And it's only if you build that relationship with the sales team that you can know what kind of goes into that hustle, so that marketing can kind of help out at scale, because that's what marketing is supposed to be doing versus the sales team. So I sort of love how it kind of ties back to what you were talking about earlier.
Exactly right. Yeah. And it's, if you have that relationship, people will generally give you the opportunity. Don't promise the world. God, I've seen that so many times. It's like, we're going to do everything, and leads are going to rain from the sky. And no, promise just like a little piece. Just make their life a little better, one day at a time. And they will help you make your life better. There's lots of insights back and forth. And then sometimes, as you were doing the other thing, I would say that's at an activity basis. When you are doing planning, even marketing planning, bring product and sales to the table. When I was at Sirius, I used to do some workshops, and they really were talking about kind of activity building, plan building. What are we going to do? How are we going to create demand? Or how are we going to do this ABM program for this particular product in this particular market? And I refused to do them if they didn't bring a salesperson and a product person to the room. I basically said, you know what, if you guys are in marketing and you're in the room by yourself making assumptions, you bring your data for sure. You got to have the salespeople there, because A, they will bring a point of view. B, they will respect you more because they're a part of it. They'll probably learn something. They'll probably give you some insights that you didn't know, and they will be bought in from day one. And it's always amazing. Like every time I did that kind of workshop, every single time, and these are like dozens and dozens of them, people walked out going, wow, I never knew that. Like the salesperson said this was, I always thought was really important. And the salesperson goes, no, nobody cares about that. It's like, wow, that never came out in the data, and I never knew that. And the sales people, they would say things like, I just wish we could do this and this and this. And the marketing people go, we can do that. We didn't know you needed that. And it's amazing, just having that conversation. So, create a workshop for yourself, bring the sales and marketing and product people together when you're at the planning, not when you finish the planning, you're presenting it in PowerPoint. As you're building it, do it with a whiteboard, and let people, we used to have like sticky notes and all that kind of stuff. You need a little structure around it, but it really makes a difference, and everybody learns something, and everybody's way more engaged and ready to go. So you're not coming to them with something fully baked that they start, doing this body language. Well,
Yeah.
they'll also, and that's on a piece of it. They'll also start to give you some opportunity to talk to customers, because I actually think that's sometimes the harder piece. It's like, it's okay if they're not our customer, but if it's our customer, it's like, it's mine. And you can give them tools to help them be more productive talking to customers, and start to ease into that as well. Again, progress-based, one step at a time.
Mm-hmm. Great. So I know that, you're extremely passionate about strategy, and I also know that, you have an upcoming event, that you guys are going to be talking about making sure your buyers choose you. So can you tell us a little bit about, at Iron Horse today as the Chief Growth Officer, what is your strategy looking like this year in regards to events? How are these events sort of helping you kind of grow your business?
Yeah. We're a big believer in events. So a couple of, and our events, I'm going to talk about them kind of as horizontal programs, but these horizontal programs intersect with all the rest of the things that we're doing in marketing. So one of our programs that we have, we call it our coffee breaks. And our coffee breaks are kind of point of view, topical thought leadership.
Okay.
We've evolved this over a period of time. We brought in a host, internal person, but they're just really suited to being the host. Casual conversation like this, we bring in experts, we talk about topical. So think of that as a top of the funnel. So we're hitting on the things that we're interested in expressing our point of view about, and we have services around that, and we have this very consistent event that we use. And of course, we wrap that around with a lot of like post-event marketing. They're big for our on-demand strategy. We point a lot of people to them, throughout all of our acquisition, our client and contact acquisition, to that set of events. So we leverage those a lot on the acquisition side. And over time, we've evolved it a little bit. We've increased the production value. We've improved our landing page. We've seen what's works, and we've done like a little experimentation. I always love to have like a little bit of lab, like let's test this. Does this work a bit better? And then because it's consistent, also super important, we get to test and improve all the time. The next set of events that we do is we have, which you probably know about, Kelly, our Enterprise Growth Alliance, which is our partner program. I think of that as a little bit more middle funnel. We're big believers in the ecosystem of marketing. And so we love to partner with our technology vendors. We partner with, a lawyer about data privacy. We partner with luminaries in the industry. And in our Enterprise Growth Alliance, we do a lot of both market research side of it, but then also we're looking at things that are how do partners work together for the betterment of the client, because clients are general contractors of all of us together. So if we can bring that together and show that we work as a partnership, we can talk about, solutions in a more in-depth way, in a more integrated way. And I think that's important to clients. And then at the end of the year, towards the end of the year, I think we might experiment with some kind of bottom of the funnel, very intimate, live events, and see how that works into the mix. And that obviously we would do it, geographically where it makes sense. And you can kind of see now we're using events at all stages of the funnel with kind of consistent programs across them that intersect with our messaging strategy and our segment strategy.
Yeah, so much to unpack there. I think the key things that you're
kind of quiz me on my events.
Yeah,
I'm gonna fail.
It's so great that you guys have these sort of like pillars of events that are across the entire customer journey. So you are following your customers as they're having those conversations with you and your partners. I love, the aspect of a series events of, making sure that it's repeatable, that it's consistent, because, that really helps with brand. It really helps making sure that you can experiment. I think, a lot of the times when I think about why a series is so important, is because you can't have a successful one-off event. You kind of have to learn from previous events and then build upon that success and continue growing from there. So I think a series really helps set that up. So if anybody in the audience is doing, event series and seeing success, let us know in the chat. I'd love to talk more about, what types of success you're seeing, how you're experimenting. It really is a great way to continue conversations, because events is like the one channel that really does humanize a brand and allows your audience and your buyers and your customers to actually connect with like the people behind the colors and the logos. So I love that you guys are doing a series of events. I love that you're doing the partnerships. I think as B2B marketers and B2B solutions, we don't live in a silo where we work with a lot of different integration partners. There are a lot of and the thing is, most of the time we're better together for it. When we're working together, we come out stronger. So identifying those partnerships is so key. I want to ask you how, in a very, very cluttered space across every single industry and segment, how are you able to identify partners so you're being very focused in the messaging and not kind of having too many partners? Is there such thing as having too many partners?
Oh boy, that's a great question. Can you have too many partners? Theoretically, when I think back to when I managed channels and partners, yes, you can. But at that point, we're talking about, the old fashioned, VARs, like sell through partners and those sorts of things. And you would have our A, B, and C partners. And, we'd have to manage hundreds of C partners that never sold anything. And yes, you can have too many partners. So you have to have a strategy in terms of your partnerships of who you are going to create different levels and different kinds of partnerships with. So bringing it kind of back down into this, I think that for marketeers, there's marketing partners and there's selling partners. So there are places, and there's now cool technology where I forgot the name of it. Maybe where you can have a conversation about, I'm in this partner, or I'm in this client, or you in this client too. So it's a bridge technology. So
I think there's a company called Crossbeam that does that.
Crossbeam, that's it.
Yes, Crossbeam.
So, and I think that's really cool, because then thanks, Stephanie. Then if we're both in the same client, there's even more motivation to partner deeply. And if we partner deeply, and I'm not just saying you and I as partners, but generically, two partners that are serving the same clients work well together, that benefits the client. And that's just a virtuous cycle, right? Everybody's going to win from that. So part of it, who you partner with is where you are in the same place, and there's a draw. Part of it, I think, is creating the correct ecosystem for your product or service that serves your client. So, if here's the whole landscape and you live here in the landscape, partnering with somebody that's way out here, they might be really cool and interesting, but it's better to start with the partnering that you're going to be close to, that serves the client. I think about that as I said, as an ecosystem. So it's not just technology partners. We're not a technology vendor, we're a service vendor. But there are also IP vendors. Like I said, data privacy is a great partner to have. And we work with, a particular lawyer that works on that. So building that ecosystem out, from the center out. Are you going to have some partners that compete with each other within each partner's ecosystem? Probably. I suspect we're not the only agency that Goldcast works with, and I'm okay with that. It's on me to be a better partner than anybody else, to have a better service, like a service product, than anybody else, to make sure that when it's a fit, you're looking at me and you can trust me. So, and I'm okay with that. I think that having everybody on your roster, you're not going to be able to partner as deeply. And I believe that deep partnerships generally do better than a lot of really shallow partnerships. It's kind of like if you have technology in your organization. We used to see this. We used to survey this all the time. Having 20 people that know this much, not nearly as valuable of having 2 people who are absolute super users. Like, you're just going to get more out of it. You're going to be happier with technology. You're going to get a better ROI. I think partnerships are a little bit the same. Having a few really deep partnerships really makes a difference.
Really being strategic and investing in those relationships can make a bigger impact, for sure.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about, Iron Horse. On your LinkedIn page, you guys describe yourselves as data heads, creative thinkers, and demand gen experts with a collective passion for connecting the dots between marketing efforts and results. And then, in previous conversations, we have also talked about how you serve customers that are both in the enterprise and both in the emerging growth markets. Can you talk a little bit about the journey to providing results, talk about how the journey to providing results for the two different segments? Like, I'm sure there are different motions, they have different challenges and pain points. Can you talk a little, and I'm sure some of our audience either identifies with the enterprise or maybe they're an emerging growth company. How do you kind of look at strategy differently between the
two? There's a lot in there as well. So we talked a little bit about if we zero in on results, we talked a little bit about that before, about metrics and who you're talking to and those sorts of things. Enterprises and emerging growth companies, smaller companies, have different problems. So enterprises tend to have a lot of resource, which is great, right? There's money, there's resources, people, there's skills. The bigger the enterprise, the more compartmentalized it can get. I have worked with one kind of $50 billion company where literally the business unit that did the marketing planning, all of the content development, et cetera, had no influence whatsoever over what they called performance marketing, which was the demand gen piece of it. Literally, they didn't talk to each other. And it was excruciating because you couldn't make the changes. You couldn't get the insights in order to do that. They were both really, really smart, but they became extremely compartmentalized. So breaking down those barriers becomes very, very difficult. And that's where some of these, tips in terms of alignment and getting them in the room and just being human about it makes a big, big difference. On the emerging growth side, you don't have the compartmentalization. Everybody talks to everybody. Yeah. Sometimes it's a little bit chaotic,
right?
In terms of everybody talking to everybody, but you do tend to have a lot less resource. So you have to be a lot scrappier in terms of what you do. So if you think about that, now take kind of that scenario, that landscape, and think about results and how you measure results. Because that was kind of the how do you do activity and measure results and measure outcomes, and it has to start, as I said before, on what those results are, and now you can bring back the big bugaboo of marketing source leads or how many MQLs, and that's the only thing that we measure. But there is a way to get out of that, and if I take two super polar examples just for illustration. So take one client who is in telecom, like telecom backbone, trying to sell 5G. They only have like 50 companies that buy from them or 100 companies that buy from them. It's a multi-billion-dollar sale. It's generational. It happens once every 5 years. So marketing qualified leads, it's just like, that's silly. Like how would marketing go, here's all the things I did and I'm going to source a lead. They know who all these people are. Honestly, the things that marketing did that was really important, government relations, hugely important. You're talking about telecom, right?
Yeah.
Executive communications, hugely important for them. Competitive messaging, competitive insights for their salespeople, hugely important for them.
So removing friction, really.
All of that, removing friction things, right? That was a big thing. That's a great way of saying it. A big thing for that situation. So let's go to the other side, like the emerging growth company. Of course, we want pipeline. Everyone's like, I need leads, I want pipeline. But that's not the only value that marketing brings to the table. We work with quite a few PE-backed companies, private equity companies. So private equity companies, they come in, we work with companies that are like 75 to 500 million, 500 million, a little big. They come in, they do an infusion of cash to try and grow the company faster. So lots of pressure on. So yes, we want to grow the business and we want to have leads. But when I have conversations with the PE guys on the side, I hear things like this. We were doing a web analysis on one. Here's a website that does a really good job in terms of conversion, and here's your company, your client company, their operating partners, not so good. And the PE guy said to me, he goes, you know what? If our company had that good a website, I would have paid more for them. Well, there's a value from marketing. I had another guy, different PE company, said, if marketing and sales, if all of the processes are in place and they're well governed and they have great insights and they can follow everything, I can get another turn. I can get more money for them when I sell them. So these are not like how many marketing qualified leads, I gave this month. These are like bigger thoughts of value. And you can't just and I understand as a marketing leader, you can't just come in and go, oh, well, look, my website's great. We can get more money from the PE company. But it's really just a matter of opening up the aperture a little bit and not getting too hung up on that is the only value that marketing brings to the table. yes, you may still have to produce that particular metric, but marketing has a lot more value that they bring to the table. And whether it is supporting sales, like you said, getting rid of friction with sales or with other stakeholders, supporting the overall growth value of the company, marketing brings all of that to the table, which makes it a really exciting place to be.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for all of your thoughts about, the B2B marketing industry, how to align with the sales teams and other go-to-market teams. We have a lot of questions from our audience here, so I'm going to pull some up and get you to answer some of these. So speaking of alignment with sales, a question from Logan here. What's your biggest tip when working with a sales team that's hesitant to use marketing resources or help?
Understand why they're hesitant. Go to the root of the problem. Why are you hesitant to use marketing resources? Is it because you were burnt in your last company? Is it because you think, marketing, all of the marketing material, all of the content, you guys don't really understand what we do, so you make it so high level and so fluffy that it's meaningless? May or may not be true, but understand what the hesitancy is. It might be, hey, we're doing this because we're way at the top of the funnel. People don't even know who we are. We're just trying to associate this product with our brand, and you're working way down here where you're in the guts of the solution. Of course, it's different content. Let's talk about it. But you have to understand the hesitancy first, understand why they're hesitant, and then you can solve the problem. It could be 100 different things. Oftentimes it's like, you handed me a bunch of leads and they were crappy. Okay, let's work on that problem. It's like, I went to the event and people didn't buy 5 minutes after. Okay, let's work on that problem.
Right.
Find out what the problem is specifically. Otherwise, it's really, really hard to solve.
Cool. We have a question about MQLs. So is the MQL dead? And 10 qualified leads is the new boomer. Agree?
It's becoming a battlefield. My personal view, I think that, and part of this is messaging, because I am in marketing. MQL, marketing qualified lead. Is it dead or not? The problem with saying marketing qualified lead is dead is twofold. One is marketing qualified lead is still an indicator of something happened. Marketing qualified lead is a hand raiser, right? It's like somebody raised their hand a bunch of times. Do I want to know that? Hell yes, I want to know that. I want to know that somebody raised their hand a bunch of times. Is that the only thing I want to know, or the most important thing I want to know? Probably not. The position of MQL as a metric is shifting in terms of the landscape. I do want to know that it exists, because I want to be able to understand that hand raiser and who are all the other people in the buying group. Are they raising their hands at the same time? How many times are they raising their hands? Is this one opportunity within my enterprise, or is this, 5 different opportunities within the enterprise? It's still a metric that I do want to know, but what's usually behind the question is it the only metric? Is it the metric that I should be bringing forward? And the problem with, saying, oh, it's dead, is that's your cultural and communication problem. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from marketing leaders that literally that is the metric that the board wants to hear. And sometimes the only metric that the board wants to hear. Just tell me how many marketing qualified leads or how many marketing sourced leads came. And so you can't kill it. If you go in and you go, I'm going to kill it and we're going to look at this instead, that's a really, really tough battle to fight. So it's an easier battle to come in and say, here's marketing qualified lead. Yes, you've been looking at this for the last 5 years. This is what it is. Let me help you understand, how many buying groups we've got now, or how many marketing qualified accounts we've got now, or how many, how much insight, like how many of our, account list we've touched this week. Just give them data point. What the heck happened? Oh, sorry.
No worries.
I was getting too passionate about it. Give them one other data point to start to build on that. Over time, you may phase marketing qualified lead out to be kind of one of those operational things you use within marketing, like how many opens. I mean, how many people tell their board how many clicks or opens they have anymore? Not anymore. Way back when they did. How many eyeballs came to my website was a metric. This will fade out over time, but I think that saying it's dead is a little polarizing, and it sets up a problem of like operationally, it sets up a problem for companies to evolve to the next place, because it's a cultural thing. We trained, you know what, Serious Decisions did this. We trained everybody, you know, MQL, not just us, but you know, that company, I was there, trained a lot of people, and people love it because it's like marketing has something that is quantifiable, trackable, measurable. Those are all really, really good things. But just this particular metric has to shift in terms of the context of all the other metrics, and it's important in the context of the landscape, of the measurement landscape. That is my that's my platform, and I'm sticking to it.
That's great. We have a couple of questions here actually about AI. Everyone is talking about AI. What are your ideas and perspectives on the ways that AI can enable marketers, specifically in events?
Yeah, specifically in events. So the easy, you know, AI, it's kind of like define AI, like how much of it is machine learning. You know, machine learning is a type of AI with a more you know, structured algorithm, if you will. I think most people, when they're talking about AI, and it's like everybody's talking about it, it's generative AI. So it's ChatGPT and that ilk of things. And the easy answer there, you know, for me, and we do it today, is it's time saving to take the person that is super busy and buy them a chunk of time by getting partway through whatever they're doing. Let me give you this isn't an event specific, but you could use it the same way, the same thought for events, and then I'll think specifically for events. We're working with a client and we want to create a little assessment for them. And I said, look, to do this assessment, you need to have 5 categories and 4 questions each. And the guy's like, I'm so busy, how am I going to get it done? And that night it's in my inbox. And I'm like, and I go, how did you do that? Where'd you find the time? And he goes, basically, I used generative AI and I asked it a question and it spit out a bunch of stuff for me. I edited it a little bit and it's a place to start. And that to me is the first set of stuff. It's a productivity tool. It's a time saver. Now you can have that with events the same way of you know, give me five possible subject lines for the invitation, you know, or the registration page that are snappy that mean this. Okay, well, I just saved myself writing 5 subject lines or 5 headlines, having somebody else do it. Maybe I use one of them, maybe I don't, maybe it triggers a thought in me, but it's a productivity savings in order to give people a head start. I think generative AI is going to kind of separate the people that are super busy and the people that don't have enough to do. Because the people that don't have enough to do will say, I don't like it. And the people that are super busy are going to say, yeah, I can use that. I can be more productive. I think beyond that right now, I think this year, it's going to be very much an experimental year of what to do, how much to do. There's a lot of policy. We won't get into that policy around this or lack of policy around it that people are talking about and thinking about, that I think needs to settle down as well. But right now, I think it's a good productivity tool. It's good to experiment with. It's good to know about. I think a lot of it will start to get embedded into other products. So you'll start to see like conversational chatbots using more intuitive and generative AI, probably starting with a company's internal documentation. So think about, we have a client that is, they do like DNA sharing and you know, really, really complicated scientific stuff. And if somebody comes with a question and they can use generative AI to look at all of the information that they have, that they vetted, that their scientists believe in, that might be a huge productivity saver rather than me reading the question and having to out what to do and how to answer that question. I think that's going to be useful. Again, not an event example, but maybe there's some, maybe you have, Kelly, something on that.
I think, you know, definitely AI is just it's just coming up right now. We're going to see a lot of exciting innovation to see how an AI is going to be embedded, like you said, in different softwares and vendors. At Goldcast, we use AI for a lot of different things. We use AI for, getting ideas for, copy, not taking it as is, but it's a good starter. Like you said, it's a good productivity tool. We use AI for a lot of recaps, being able to summarize transcripts, so you can have just a couple of bullet points. There's a lot of different ways that we're using it, and I think there's going to be a lot of exciting things that are coming up, in the event space on how, because we know the event marketer very well. We know the event marketer sits in the camp of being super busy, has too much to do. So there's going to be a lot of use cases for how AI can be helpful.
Yeah, I think productivity and creativity. I'll share you just one last story. I was at a live event with a vendor. It was mostly internal event, but they had brought some customers in just to talk to their team about what's important to them, those sorts of things. And they used ChatGPT, and the question was that the salespeople had to pitch to this customer panel silly ideas for how to pitch. How to create a pitch. And ChatGPT said, you have to wear a funny hat. You have to stand on one leg. And it was, but they brought the screen up and you could see all of the ChatGPT on the side. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. It's really fun to read all that stuff on the side. So that's a very specific event one.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you, Monica, for being here with me today. I really appreciate you. How can our audience find you to continue the conversation? Is it best to find you on LinkedIn? Like, what's the best thing to do?
LinkedIn and ironhorse.io. We're an IO. Ironhorse.io website. Two best places.
Great. And then Reagan just dropped Monica's LinkedIn there, so feel free to connect with her. But thank you for joining, everybody. For everyone that entered to win swag, we will be in touch with you on how to redeem that. But have a great rest of your day and your week.
Thanks,
Bye, everybody.
Kelly. Bye.